One of my favorite Bradstreet poems is Verses Upon the Burning of Our House, July 10th, 1666. And I wanted to take a few minutes to show you what I mean by unpacking a stanza of the poem and really looking word for word, word by word, at the non-literal, the connotative, the symbolic meanings of language and of a poem by focusing on a poet's use of literary devices. This is a classic Puritan poem in many ways because it gets at that tension between the material world, symbolized by the house, and the transcendent spiritual world of the afterlife, symbolized at the end of the poem by the God's divine house, right? And God's divine architecture. So we have a juxtaposition, right, of the earthly house and the divine house. And so that's the core tension for the Puritan, who is struggling with the sense that what matters most is the afterlife, but an undeniable attachment to the material world. Now, within that debate, what I find interesting is a 6-line stretch that happens to sort of towards the middle of the poem, where she's got three different couplets going on here that I think are interesting to look at. And the reason I think they're interesting to look at is they problematize the simple binary that Bradstreet sets up. The easy binary is material world is symbolized by house, spiritual world symbolized by heavenly house of God. Boom. The Puritan's job is to pick the spiritual house, the divine, the afterlife over the material house of the world. And I think that's relatively easy for Bradstreet when she talks about how her pleasant things in ashes lie, and then behold, no more shall I. That she sees the material world as pleasant, but not as important as God's judgment. So I think that one's clear for her. Where I think things get tough for Bradstreet is when she starts talking about the psychological, the emotional, the human connections of family, neighbor, and community. And I think those are unpacked in these 6 lines. She says, under thy roof no guest shall sit. I think it's interesting that she's personifying the house, right? Thy roof. So we've got this image of a roof, but by linking it with personification, the roof becomes a symbol of the entire domestic space. And by linking it to the word guest, it links the house as a domestic space also to hospitality, as a place where friends and neighbors come to sit and join and to share a meal. Again, thy, the personification, and this time the image is the table. So the roof, the table, these are images of what? Images of domesticity, images of socialization and community, images of hospitality. They have connotations beyond their literal words, and this gets at Bradstreet's dilemma, because here it's not just the material. Here it's this powerful psychological, emotional experience of love, neighborhood, friendship, etc. And then she goes on to talk about the kind of conversations that occur. No pleasant talk shall e'er be told, nor things recounted done of old. So again, we get the imagery now is oral, of storytelling and conversation. And the associations here are again of community, of human connection, of family. The connotations here are beyond the literal. She's referring literally to words and conversation, but symbolically, connotatively to larger psychological needs and desires that a home not only symbolizes, but creates a space to achieve. So it's very kind of interesting. And then finally, we get another image of light, the candle shining. And of course, this always has a religious tone to it. But here, the candle shining, again mixed with the personification of the house as thee, is a powerful image of night and family life at night in the Puritan world. And when that is connected in the next line to the bridegroom's voice, again, an example of synecdoche, something we've talked about at a couple different points, a part representing the whole. We now get not just the bridegroom's voice, but an oral image of marriage, right? And another important psychological part of the domestic space of the house. So, in a series of images unpacked in 6 lines, framed by a crucial move, the personification of the house, Bradstreet gets at more than the material idea of a house. She gets at the house as a symbol of family, community, love, marriage, connection. And this connotative move complicates the whole poem because it breaks up the simple binary of material house and spiritual God house. It creates a different space of powerful psychological drives that are many times at the heart of Bradstreet's poetry. So I hope I've given you an interesting example of how you can closely read some lines of a poem and really get at what the author is doing in terms of meaning, how the poet is using literary devices to generate meaning. And this is what I'd like you to try to do now in the exercise I'm asking you to complete. Get in there and explore some lines, play with some language, and ask yourself, how is Bradstreet using the symbolic, the connotative, the beyond literal through literary devices to communicate meaning, to make an argument, to say something about her experience as a Puritan woman in 17th century America? Hope that's helpful. Hope that's interesting. See you in Canvas.